Olivia silenced the guard who mocked her, and stood tall against a boardroom of doubters. But what she didn't know, was that her biggest enemy wasn't in the lobby. And it wasn't even seated across the boardroom table. It was someone much closer, someone she trusted, someone already weaving the threads of betrayal. And when the truth comes out, the price will be devastating. Back in her office, Olivia stared out at the city skyline. On the surface, she had won. She had stood her ground against Grayson and his allies. But beneath that victory, unease gnawed at her. She had seen the note, set her up. The board wasn't just skeptical, they were planning her downfall. Still, Olivia told herself, I've faced worse. I can handle this. What she didn't realize, was that her enemies were already closer than she imagined. Enter Daniel, her chief of staff. Loyal, dependable, always by her side. He had been one of the first to congratulate her on her appointment. The one who stayed late, who reassured her when the pressure mounted. And Olivia leaned on him, trusted him, confided in him. But Daniel was playing a dangerous double game. Behind closed doors, he was meeting with Grayson, feeding him information and whispering Olivia's plans before she even revealed them. Why? Because Grayson had promised him a reward. When Olivia fell, Daniel would rise. The trap unfolded slowly. Emails are misplaced. Meetings are forgotten. Key documents were somehow lost. Every mistake traced back to Olivia. Investors began to murmur. Maybe she's not ready. Maybe she's too reckless. And Daniel, always so sympathetic, would pat her shoulder and say, don't worry, you're doing fine. All the while, he was tightening the noose. The audience knew, but Olivia didn't. That's the cruel weight of betrayal. It cuts deepest when it comes from the hand you trust. Meanwhile, downstairs, Peterson, the guard who had humiliated Olivia, was spiraling. He had tried to apologize, but every time Olivia passed, she was too focused on the storms above to notice him. So he decided, he would prove himself. Peterson began quietly watching the lobby with sharper eyes. He overheard whispers from board members, noticed late-night meetings, saw Daniel sneaking out after hours. And for the first time, the guard who once dismissed Olivia, realized she was in danger. But would he act, or stay silent? The breaking point came at a shareholders' meeting. Olivia stood to present quarterly results. She was confident. She had prepared. But as the slides flashed on the screen, something was wrong. The numbers were twisted. Her forecasts looked reckless. Her strategy seemed disastrous. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras clicked. Journalists scribbled notes. Grayson leaned back with a satisfied smile. This is what I warned you about. Premature. Unfit. Olivia's blood ran cold. She knew these weren't her numbers. But the documents bore her signature. And then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Daniel, standing still, avoiding her gaze. Her heart sank. The betrayal she never saw coming was staring her in the face. Olivia stood frozen at the podium, the board glaring, investors whispering, the press circling like vultures. Her mind raced. How had this happened? Who had turned her own plans against her? And then her eyes locked with Daniel's. For a split second, his mask slipped, and she saw the truth. The ally she trusted most, was the knife in her back. But what Olivia didn't know was that help might come from the last person she expected, the very guard who once disrespected her, because Peterson had seen something that could change everything. Olivia stood humiliated, betrayed by the very person she trusted most. Her plans twisted, her reputation shredded before the board. But fate has a strange way of turning tables. Because sometimes, the person you least expect, the one who once tore you down, can be the very hand that lifts you back up. And when the truth finally comes to light, justice won't just be poetic, it will be unforgettable. The shareholders' meeting spiraled out of control. Grayson pushed forward, his voice booming across the room. She is reckless, incompetent, a danger to this company. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned in, and Daniel, he sat quietly, letting Olivia burn. For a moment, Olivia felt it, defeat. Maybe they were right, maybe she wasn't ready. But then, the doors creaked open at the back of the hall. Peterson, the guard who once mocked her, the same man who told her she didn't belong. He was clutching a folder, his face pale but determined. The board tried to wave him off, but Peterson raised his voice. Wait, he shouted, and the room froze. Everyone turned as the guard, usually invisible, walked to the center of the floor. I have something you need to see. From his folder, Peterson revealed security logs, late-night surveillance footage, and copies of altered documents. And then came the gut punch. videos showing Daniel meeting with Grayson after hours, emails forwarded from Olivia's account, a paper trail of sabotage. The silence was deafening. Daniel's face went white. He stammered, tried to protest, but the evidence was irrefutable. Grayson's smirk vanished. The very weapon he thought would destroy Olivia was now pointed back at him. Olivia straightened. Calm, steady, her voice carried across the room. You called me unfit. Reckless. But the only recklessness here is betrayal from the very people who were supposed to protect this company. Her eyes locked on Daniel, then Grayson. And you, she said firmly, will never again decide who belongs and who doesn't. The shareholders erupted, applause, murmurs of agreement, even cheers. The tide had turned. Within hours, the board voted. Grayson was stripped of his chairmanship. Daniel was fired on the spot, escorted out of the building. And Peterson, the man who once disrespected Olivia, stood awkwardly, expecting punishment. But Olivia turned to him and said, "You made a mistake, yes. But you also chose to do the right thing when it mattered most. That's what defines a person." For the first time, Peterson's eyes softened. He had called her unworthy. Now he bowed his head in respect. Olivia's story is a reminder. People will judge you. They will underestimate you. Some will even try to destroy you. But true power doesn't come from their approval. It comes from standing tall, from letting the truth speak louder than lies, and from knowing that no matter how dark the storm gets, justice has a way of shining through. And as Olivia left the boardroom that day, victorious, she whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." Because what Olivia didn't know was that Grayson's fall wasn't the end. It was only the start of a much larger war.